The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. Picture this. You're sitting in a packed university auditorium with 400 people crammed inside, and even more, watching from an overflow room. There's this weird electricity in the air, anticipation mixed with something heavier, almost like grief hanging in the atmosphere. You're here for what professors call a last lecture series, where they're supposed to imagine giving their final talk to the world. Except tonight, there's nothing imaginary about it. The guy walking onto that stage is Randy Pausch, a rock star computer science professor, only 46 years old. He's got a wife he adores and 3 little kids at home. And he's dying. Pancreatic cancer has basically written him an expiration date, just months of decent health remaining. Everyone sitting there knows it. You can practically feel that knowledge pressing down on the room. So what does Randy do with this moment? Does he get all morbid and talk about death? Does he share his fears about cancer? Nope. He throws up a scan of his tumors on the massive screen behind him, casually points at them with arrows like he's giving a weather report, and says, "We cannot change the cards we are dealt, just how we play the hand." Then this guy drops to the floor and starts banging out push-ups, one-handed ones, even. The crowd absolutely loses it. What you're about to discover is the story behind that legendary lecture and the book it inspired, a book that's sold over 5 million copies in the U.S. alone and been translated into nearly 50 languages. It's the story of a man who looked death straight in the eye and decided not to whisper, but to shout. He took his final months and crafted a message, not just for strangers in an auditorium, but as a love letter in a bottle for the children who would grow up without him. Here's what I promise you. By the time we're done here, you won't just know about a remarkable book. You'll walk away with a powerful, surprisingly simple blueprint for how to actually live. This isn't a depressing story about dying. It's an electrifying story about squeezing every drop of purpose, joy, and wonder out of every single moment you've got. It's about making your childhood dreams come true. So let's dive in. Remember when you were a kid and had those completely wild, over-the-top dreams? Maybe you wanted to float in space like an astronaut, or play professional football, or meet your favorite superhero. Randy Pausch had a whole list of these crazy dreams. And standing on that stage, staring down his own mortality, he realized something beautiful. The best way to show people who he really was, and what mattered to him, was to tell the story of those childhood dreams. He made it crystal clear from the start. This lecture wasn't about dying. It had to be about living. And for Randy, living meant chasing those wild dreams he'd had as a little boy, and, somehow, incredibly, achieving almost all of them. So he created this quirky list that became the roadmap for his entire message. Being in zero gravity, playing in the NFL, writing an article in the World Book Encyclopedia, being Captain Kirk, winning those ridiculously huge stuffed animals at carnivals, and becoming a Disney Imagineer. This wasn't just some bucket list, though. It was a framework for understanding how to navigate life. And here's the thing. Achieving these dreams wasn't about luck or talent alone. It was about learning how to work with people, how to persist, and most importantly, how to deal with what he called, quote, brick walls. This brick wall concept is probably the most game-changing idea in the entire book. Randy told the audience something that'll make you rethink every obstacle you've ever faced. The brick walls are there for a reason. They're not there to keep us out. The brick walls are there to give us a chance to show how badly we want something. They're there to stop all those other people, the ones who don't want it enough. But before Randy could chase any of these dreams, he needed a foundation. And that foundation, he said with total gratitude, came from what he called winning the parent lottery. Randy grew up in a pretty ordinary, middle-class household, where money wasn't thrown around on fancy stuff, but his parents invested heavily in one thing: knowledge. They bought the World Book Encyclopedia, which back then was seriously expensive, because they believed in feeding their kids curiosity. At their dinner table, if you had a question, you were expected to find the answer. The dictionary was practically a family member. His dad was a World War II medic, this quiet hero type who taught Randy about humility and serving others. His mom was this tough-as-nails English teacher who kept his ego in check. Years later, when Randy earned his Ph.D., she'd introduce him by saying, "This is my son. He's a doctor, but not the kind that helps people." This environment gave Randy the confidence to ask for something truly bizarre as a teenager. He wanted to paint his bedroom walls, not just paint them a color. He wanted to paint things on them, things that mattered to him. His mom was nervous, but his dad, always the champion of creativity, gave him the green light. So Randy went wild. He painted a quadratic formula on one wall, an elevator door on another wall, in a one-story ranch house, mind you. He painted a submarine periscope peeking over his bunk bed. And on the ceiling he wrote, "I'm trapped in the attic," backwards, like someone was scratching it from above. His parents let him do all of it. They let him transform his room into a canvas for his imagination. This wasn't just about being cool about paint. It was a profound message. Your dreams matter. Your ideas deserve space in this world. Don't be afraid to express them. That kind of freedom set the stage for tackling his first major dream, floating in zero gravity. As a kid, he figured out he could never be an actual astronaut because he wore glasses. But honestly, he didn't want the whole astronaut gig anyway. He just wanted the floating part. Years later, as a professor, he discovered NASA ran this program where college students could fly on the Vomit Comet, this plane that does these crazy parabolic arcs to create 25 seconds of weightlessness at a time. He put together a team of students, and they won a spot. Then he hit his first major brick wall. NASA had this rule: faculty advisors couldn't actually fly. Randy was crushed, but he remembered his own lesson about brick walls being tests of how badly you want something. So instead of giving up, he read through all the rules with a fine-tooth comb, searching for any loophole. And boom, he found one. NASA allowed a hometown journalist to fly with the students. Randy immediately resigned as the faculty advisor and applied as the team's journalist. When the NASA official on the phone said, "That's a little transparent, don't you think?" Randy had his answer ready. "Sure it is, but I promise I will get you fantastic media coverage." He understood another crucial lesson. Have something valuable to offer. Make yourself a resource, not just a pest. NASA agreed, and Randy got his 25 seconds of floating. He'd found his way through the brick wall. But here's the thing. Not all dreams are meant to come true. And sometimes, the lessons from the dreams you don't achieve teach you even more. For Randy, that dream was playing in the NFL. He was this scrawny, wimpy kid when his dad basically dragged him to his first football practice. He was terrified. His coach, Jim Graham, was like a mountain of a man, this former linebacker who was old-school intense. On the very first day of practice, Coach Graham didn't even bring any footballs. When a kid asked why, the coach boomed, "How many men are on the field?" 22. "How many are touching the ball at any given time?" 1. "We're going to work on what the other 21 are doing." It was a master class in fundamentals. You've got to nail the basics before you can do the flashy stuff. Coach Graham rode Randy relentlessly, constantly correcting him, making him do push-ups. One day, an assistant coach pulled Randy aside and said, "Coach Graham rode you pretty hard today, didn't he?" Randy nodded, probably feeling pretty beaten down. "That's a good thing," the assistant said. "When you're screwing up and nobody says anything to you anymore, that means they've given up on you." That moment changed everything for Randy. He realized that your harshest critics are often the people who love you most. They're the ones who see your potential and are willing to invest the energy to help you reach it. This is what Randy called a head fake. You think you're learning how to play football, but what you're really learning is teamwork, perseverance, and how to take criticism without falling apart. That's the real treasure. Randy never made it to the NFL, but chasing that dream shaped him more profoundly than many of the ones he actually caught. Some of his other dreams were more intellectual. He absolutely revered the World Book Encyclopedia and dreamed of someday being an author in it. He figured that was basically impossible. The World Book has to find you, right? But decades later, after he became a leading expert in this cutting-edge field called virtual reality, his phone rang. It was the World Book. They wanted him to write the entry on virtual reality. Another childhood dream. Boom. Checked off the list. Then there was the Captain Kirk dream. For a nerdy kid in the 1960s, Captain Kirk from Star Trek was basically the ultimate hero. What's fascinating, Randy realized, was that Kirk wasn't actually the smartest person on the ship. Spock was the logic genius, McCoy was the medical expert, and Scotty was the engineering wizard. Kirk's superpower was something else entirely: leadership. He set the vision, he delegated like a boss, and he was the master of keeping morale high. He knew how to manage talent. Years later, in this moment of pure magic, William Shatner, the actual actor who played Kirk, visited Randy's virtual reality lab at Carnegie Mellon. Randy and his students built a virtual bridge of the Starship Enterprise just for him. Having his childhood idol come to see the cool stuff he was creating was, for Randy, a dream fully realized. Shatner was incredibly curious, asking questions for hours. He was this perfect example of someone who knew what he didn't know and wasn't embarrassed to admit it. Later, when Shatner heard about Randy's cancer diagnosis, he sent him a signed photo of himself as Kirk with this incredible message: "I don't believe in the no-win scenario." But perhaps the most meaningful dream, the one that tied together his creativity, his stubbornness, and his love for creating wonder, was becoming a Disney Imagineer. As an 8-year-old at Disneyland, he was completely awestruck. He knew right then and there that he wanted to create that kind of magic. When he got his PhD, he immediately sent his application to Disney Imagineering. They sent back a polite rejection letter, another brick wall. Years went by. He became a professor and a pioneer in virtual reality. Then he heard Disney was secretly working on an Aladdin virtual reality ride. Randy was relentlessly persistent, calling and calling until he finally got the head of the project on the phone, this brilliant Imagineer named John Snoddy. Randy told him he'd be in California and asked if they could meet. Truth was, he would have flown to the moon for this meeting. Before they met, Randy did 80 hours of homework. He talked to every virtual reality expert he knew and compiled all their insights and questions. When he finally sat down with John Snoddy, he was so incredibly prepared that John was blown away. At the end of lunch, Randy made his pitch. He had a sabbatical coming up and wanted to spend it with the Imagineering team. Deal made. But then another brick wall appeared, this time in the form of a university dean who was worried about intellectual property issues and tried to block the sabbatical. Randy had to fight, persuade, and find allies. He eventually won. And he spent 6 glorious months as an Imagineer, living out his fantasy. He remembered driving to Imagineering headquarters for the first time in his convertible with the Lion King soundtrack blasting, tears streaming down his face. He'd made it. He was finally home. These stories about his dreams became the spine of his lecture, but woven throughout were dozens of smaller, powerful life lessons. He believed that being earnest beats trying to be hip every single time, because earnest is timeless, and hip is just temporary. He believed you shouldn't waste energy complaining, but instead channel that energy into actually solving the problem. He told this hilarious story about his bachelor days, when his sister brought her 2 young kids to visit. She warned them not to mess up Uncle Randy's brand new convertible. Randy, listening to this, knew that was a recipe for disaster. So he calmly opened a can of soda and deliberately poured it all over the back seat. His niece and nephew just stared in total shock. The message was crystal clear. A car is just a thing. People are what actually matter. Later that weekend, his nephew got sick and threw up in the car. Because of the soda incident, the poor kid wasn't terrified. He knew it would be okay. That focus on people over possessions was core to who Randy was, and that value was never tested more intensely than when he met the love of his life and his most challenging brick wall yet, a woman named Jai. He was 37, a totally confirmed bachelor, when they met. He was instantly head over heels. She was beautiful, smart, and warm. But she was cautious. She'd heard about his reputation as a guy who never settled down. After a few wonderful dates, she sent him an email basically saying she wasn't interested in a long-distance relationship. Game over. That was a serious brick wall. Randy sent her a dozen roses with a card that read, "I respect your decision and wish you nothing but the best." It was the perfect move. Respectful, not pushy. She reconsidered and got on a plane to visit him. But the journey still wasn't smooth. Later, just as she was about to move to Pittsburgh to be with him, she panicked. She told him, "I can't come. I just don't love you." It was absolutely devastating. Randy was heartbroken. He called his parents, who gave him incredible wisdom. His father said, "If she really doesn't love you, it's over. But if she does love you, and she's just scared, then love will win out." His mother told him, "Be supportive. If you love her, support her." And that's exactly what he did. He didn't pressure her or guilt-trip her. He gave her space. He was just there for her. A few days later, she called. "I'm sitting here missing you," she said. "That means something, doesn't it?" She realized she was actually in love, but had just been terrified of making such a huge life change. They got married, and on their wedding day, they left the reception in a giant hot air balloon, this grand romantic gesture that almost ended in disaster when they nearly crashed into a moving train. Kind of a fitting start to a life that would be full of adventure and challenges. Their life together brought them 3 children, Dylan, Logan, and Chloe. The birth of their first son, Dylan, was a baptism by fire. Jai had this serious complication late in her pregnancy, and on New Year's Eve she started bleeding heavily. It was a life-threatening emergency for both her and the baby. In the operating room, with Jai on the verge of going into shock, the anesthesiologist took Randy aside and gave him a crucial job. "Your wife is terrified," he said. "You are the only person who can keep her calm. Keep her with us." So as the emergency C-section began, Randy held her hand and became her narrator, calmly explaining everything that was happening. When the baby was born, tiny but screaming his lungs out, the nurses smiled. "The ones who come out all pissed off," they said. "They're the fighters." That night, Randy learned another vital lesson. In a crisis, you can either fall apart, or you can recognize there are things you can do to help, and you do them. You saddle up and ride. All of these experiences, the dreams, the brick walls, the love, the family, were building toward the central purpose of the lecture. He was trying to preserve himself in a bottle for his children. He knew Dylan, at 5 years old, might have some hazy memories of him, but Logan and Chloe would likely have almost none at all. He imagined them as teenagers, desperately wanting to know, who was my dad? What was he really like? The lecture, and the video of it, was his answer. It was his way of reaching into a future he would never get to see. He wanted them to know he was an optimist, a Tigger, not some sad sack Eeyore. He believed in having fun, and he was determined to have fun every single day he had left. Because, as he put it, there's no other way to play it. As the lecture drew toward its end, he did something beautiful. He mentioned that the day before had been his wife Jai's 41st birthday, and he hadn't been able to celebrate it properly because he was preparing this talk. He had a birthday cake wheeled out on stage, and he led the entire audience of 400 people in singing happy birthday to her. As she came on stage, tears streaming down her face, they embraced. In that moment, she whispered in his ear, "Please don't die." It was this raw, heartbreaking moment of pure humanity, and it led to his final, devastating message. He looked out at the audience and said he had a question for them. "Did you figure out the head fake?" He let that question hang in the air for a moment. "This talk isn't about how to achieve your dreams," he said. "It's about how to lead your life. If you lead your life the right way, the karma will take care of itself. The dreams will come to you." Then he clicked to the next slide. It read, "Have you figured out the second head fake?" He took a breath, and his voice cracked just slightly. "This talk wasn't just for you," he said. "It was for my kids." And on the screen behind him, a final image appeared, a photo of him with his 3 beautiful children, Dylan, Logan, and Chloe, all smiling, a father wrapped in the arms of the family he was about to leave behind. When you finish reading the last lecture, you're left with this feeling that's really hard to put into words. Sure, there's sadness, but it's overwhelmingly this powerful sense of inspiration. It's this profound wake-up call that the way we choose to spend our time is literally the only thing that truly matters. Randy Pausch was handed a death sentence, but he flipped it into an opportunity to deliver the ultimate life lesson. What makes this book so incredibly powerful is its simplicity. There aren't any complex theories or academic mumbo-jumbo here. The wisdom comes wrapped in stories. Funny, heartfelt, totally relatable stories. He teaches us about never giving up, not with some formula, but with this image of a scrawny kid on a football field getting yelled at by his coach. He teaches us about creativity with the memory of a bedroom covered in hand-painted murals. He teaches us about love with the story of a terrifying moment in a hot air balloon. The central idea of the brick wall is something that'll stick with you long after you've closed the book. How many times in our own lives have we hit a wall and just turned around? We tell ourselves it's impossible, that it wasn't meant to be. Randy completely flips this perspective. The wall isn't a barrier. It's a test. It's life asking you, how badly do you really want this? It forces you to get creative, to be stubborn, to find another route. And in that struggle, you discover what you're actually made of. Another beautiful concept is the head fake. It's this idea that the best lessons in life are often learned sideways, indirectly. We think we're learning one thing, but we're actually absorbing something way deeper. A kid playing sports isn't just learning the rules of the game. They're learning about teamwork, discipline, and how to handle both winning and losing. This is such a powerful idea for anyone who's a parent, teacher, coach, or mentor. It reminds us to focus on teaching character, not just skills. But for me, the most moving part of this whole story is its ultimate purpose. This wasn't just some guy sharing his life's wisdom with the world. This was a father desperately trying to parent from beyond the grave. Every single word, every story was chosen with his 3 young children in mind. He wanted to give them a piece of himself that they could hold on to forever. He wanted them to know that their dad was someone who loved them fiercely, who chased his dreams with passion, and who believed, above everything else, in the power of a life well lived. So how can we actually apply this? Here are a few simple actions you can take, inspired by Randy Pausch. First, make your own list of childhood dreams. Don't hold back or censor yourself. What did you want to be? What did you want to do? You might be surprised at what bubbles up. You may discover that some of those dreams are still totally achievable, or that chasing them, even if you fail, will teach you something incredibly valuable. Second, the next time you smack into a brick wall, pause for a moment. Instead of seeing it as a dead end, ask yourself Randy's question. Is this wall here to show me how badly I want something? See if you can find a creative way over it, around it, or straight through it. And finally, practice gratitude in a tangible way. Randy talks about the lost art of the handwritten thank you note. Think of someone who's been your Coach Graham or your supportive mentor. Someone who saw your potential and pushed you to be better. Take 5 minutes and write them an actual note. It's such a small act, but it can have this profound ripple effect, both for them and for you. That was a summary of The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. We've journeyed through the main ideas today, but honestly, I have to level with you. A summary is like looking at a photograph of a stunning landscape. The real experience comes when you actually walk through it yourself. The magic of this book is in those quiet moments when one of Randy's stories connects with something in your own life, or a simple phrase makes you see your world in a completely new light. This summary is really just a map to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about today has resonated with you, I really encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about absorbing information. It's an experience that might genuinely change how you choose to live each day you've been given. Also, if you found this journey valuable, I'd be incredibly grateful if you would hit that like button and subscribe. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.